Hey there. So today's tutorial is how to change the digitizer or the glass panel on an iPad. So this iPad is a model A1458 iPad, and we're going to be changing the digitizer and the home button for a black digitizer, and the kit also comes with a black home button. Just make sure that if you do order a kit and you're changing the screen, that it does include the home button, or if not, then you'll have to order a separate home button. This screen is from a seller called LL Trader. I do find his stuff has a sort of a less fail rate than other sort of cheap screens, as items are usually pretty good quality. So that's why I choose him. So I'll stick the link down below just in case you're looking for it. Some tools we're going to need is some form of heat, like a heat gun or a hairdryer. Heat guns are quicker. And then some form of sort of pry tools that whenever we heat the screen, we can get these in, jimmy the screen up, and then you'll need some form of a screwdriver. What is handy is something like a sucker, just stick onto the glass to help you pry it up, but not essential. You can just work your way around it. So hopefully this sort of tutorial can help dispel some of the sort of fears you have or some of the unknowns you have about doing this yourself, because it is possible to do it yourself. So let's get started. So the first thing, it's a bit easier in this screen because it's already started to pop up this screen, so it wasn't really well laminated. It's laminated sort of at the top, but the bottom's quite loose. So we're just going to apply a bit of heat around the top, and we should be able to just jimmy this up quite easily. If your screen is totally fixed down and there's no easy spot to get in, you might need something like a scalpel, something like this here, or a razor blade, to be able to make a start. So to get in between the bezel of the sort of chassis and the screen, to start prying it up to get the starting point. You'll probably find then, if that's the case, it'll crack quite a lot and break the screen quite a lot in that point, and then you can work your way out from that. So we'll just make a start with some heat here. So here goes. Now, as I said before, this screen was fitted pretty poorly. The adhesive wasn't heat activated, it was just stuck on. Yeah, and because of that there, the screen came up. You will most likely, if it's a first time repair, you'll most likely have an awful lot more trouble trying to get the screen up than I did there. The screen pretty much fell off. So this is really an easiest case scenario with this iPad. Usually it's not that easy. One thing I would say that it would be, if your screen is quite hard to come up, I would suggest maybe putting on a pair of safety glasses, because the little bits of glass from this here can sort of ping off and could sort of get into your eye and cause damage to your eye. So a set of safety glasses would be sort of a bit of advice that I would recommend. Okay, so that there was incredibly easy. This here is totally not sticky in the slightest. There's no sort of stickiness at all there. There's a bit in the top, but not a lot. So you can see where an actual sort of the supplied tape was used, but it's just really bad, you know, sort of not there. So that there's the tape that comes with the kit. But yeah, so there's a bit of damage here, which is actually damage to the digitizer itself, probably from whenever the screen was being pried up. So now what we'll have to do, now we've got that part of the screen off, it's connected here by the ribbon, so we need to take the 4 screws here at each of the corners that hold the LCD down. We need to lift it up so that we can actually access the little clip underneath it and safely remove this cable. We could cut it, but it's easier just if you can remove it all in one go, and then we need to sort of swap out the home button, so we'll get that in a minute. But first of all, we'll take out these 4 screws and we'll lift up the LCD. So this here is the wee sort of crappy star screwdriver that comes with the screens. Now they're not great, sometimes the spin in there, but really any little star screwdriver will do if you have any sort of little micro kit. Usually ones that are magnetic are better. and we'll just put them safely aside. All 4 screws are the same size, so we don't need to differentiate between them. We can just set them all together. And one thing I would say is try not to get any fingerprints onto this front part of the LCD, because once the fingerprint's on it, you're not getting it off, okay? So try not to touch this with anything. If you do get some glass shards on it, if you just get a very, very soft, like a microfiber cloth or some sort of really soft tissue, and just carefully brush it against it. We'll get to that there in a minute. I'll show you that there before we're putting the new screen on. There's a couple little bits of dirt on it, and we just sort of very, very lightly brush it off. No pressure applied at all, because it will leave swirls and it will damage the coating on this LCD. There's already a couple on it from the last repair, so we'll try to minimize the amount of damage that we inflict on it when we're at it. Okay, so that's the 4 screws out. I'll just get a little pry tool and we'll just lift the digitizer. Okay, so if I lift this up, here underneath the digitizer connects, or sorry, the LCD connects here, and the digitizer cable runs up into below it. Okay, so we'll just move this over that way slightly, just make sure we don't kink the cable, and then we'll lift this up, and this here, if you can see it, has 2 little clips underneath, which we just flick the clips up. Okay, and that then releases the digitizer, and we can just lift up the cable and just slide it out. There we have it. Okay, so that's as simple as that. Mine was incredibly simple because this part of it was easy. Yours will be probably a good bit harder, but once you do get the screen pried up, then we should sort of all be at this stage. So we'll just discard that metal panel. So at the minute now we still have our LCD connected. We'll leave it connected, there's no need to disconnect it, and we'll just get our other screen here and prep it. Now before we do that then, we'll get it out. So these usually come with peelable surfaces front and back, okay, to peel these off just before you fit it to reduce sort of fingerprints, etc. So this here is ready to go. We just need the home button done. There's nothing really from the other screen that we need to salvage. There's nothing inside it. Yeah, so we'll set this aside for now. So the next stage then we're going to do is we're going to clean up the frame. Okay, so we're going to remove the tape. We're going to give it a bit of a clean, and then we're going to swap out the home button. So the home button on these here is really just, if we can lift it up, it's as simple as that. Okay, so we don't have, with our new home button, we don't actually have the frame on it, so we need to take the little clip off that, stick it onto our new one, and then we've swapped out the home buttons. Okay, so that's something we're going to do in a minute, but first of all we're going to concentrate on the old adhesive tape and try and remove as much of it so that when we re-adhesive it we don't get problems with it. So we want a good sort of lamination between the screens. Okay, so because of the hassle I'm having here, there seems to be some sort of super glue applied to the frame here. So I'm actually going to remove the LCD just to make it easier for me to access the whole frame. So the same thing again, there's one clip holds the LCD. We slide it out and we'll just set it aside very carefully, not to touch the screen or damage it. Okay, so inside here you have the 3 batteries, so we just need to be careful we don't slice through them, but this glue around here is making it a bit more tedious. So that's obviously why the super glue hasn't held, and now the glue has came off, and I need to get it cleaned up and out of the sort of the plastic framework as well, so that the new screen can seat down properly and not have any sort of voids around it. Okay, so really what is sort of saved in hassle from the screen peeling up, it's sort of making up now because the residue then is stuck all around the frame. So bear with me here, this is going to take a while. Okay, so sorry about that. I'll fast forward that so you're not bored to death there whenever I'm editing the video. Okay, so that there is pretty clean. That there was a bit of a nightmare. Just if you're come across similar problems here, just make sure that the little plastic track on the outside is clean, because that there is the bit that edges the screen there. There's a bit of damage here around this, probably partly caused by me trying to get the glue off and partly caused by whoever pried the last screen off. But yeah, so just be careful and just make sure you give it a good clean, because we want it as flush as possible, so that whenever the screen is fitted onto it, it sits nice and flush. Okay, so that's that part. So now we'll reconnect the digitizer, or sorry, the LCD, and then we'll refit the digitizer. But first, we'll leave this here and we'll swap out the home buttons. Okay, so this is our existing home button, and we're just going to peel the back from it with something quite sharp. Okay, so that's it separated. And we'll just stick on our new home button using the adhesive that was there. Okay, so what we'll also do, as well as now the fact that that's stuck on, we'll just try and center the little pin there in the center, and we'll just actually take this little pad off the original one and we'll swap it over, because sometimes the contacts that come on it just aren't deep enough to click the clicker underneath. So we'll just take this and we'll actually just transplant this from here onto there. There we go. Okay, so that there should be plenty. Okay, so now whenever this here sits over like so, we should get a good contact from the screen. Okay, or more accurately, when it sits like this. Yes, and I can feel then the little click. I'll try and let you hear this, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, so that should be fine. So we'll just leave the home button in place. We'll now take our digitizer and we'll reclaim our LCD. We'll plug the LCD back in again. Flick the little tab down. Okay. Now we're going to plug this in first, reseat it, clean this, and then put the tape on. Okay. So we take this little bit of tape off the back. Okay. We'll take it off entirely. So there is a little plastic film on the inside we're going to remove. There's a tab here, down here. So we'll actually leave it on until we're literally ready to put the screen on. So we just put these back in. Okay, and this bit can be a wee bit fittery trying to get these here back in straight. There we go. And try and push these in then until they reach the little dotted line. And then we'll just push these little clips down and that's it in. Okay, so now we have the screen reconnected. We just need to seat the LCD, run this track down, peel that off. But before we do any of that then we'll seat the LCD, clean it and put the tape around it. Okay, so so we can actually just run this little track in there and leave the LCD quite close Close enough then that whenever we bring this up, we can set that in place, okay? There we go. Okay. Just avoiding our home button. So we want a bit of slack there because when we lift the screen up, we want to feed the slack underneath it, okay? So we'll just get a nice clean cloth, a microfiber cloth, and give this here a very, very light wipe. And if we just work from the center and work our way out towards the edges, then there's less chance of us pulling dirt from the edges back in again. So give our little cloth a shake every now and again, and just try and as gently as possible. I'm literally applying next to no force. It's really just the stiffness of the cloth that's doing the work here, okay? So you don't want to be leaning too heavy in this, otherwise you could do it damage or crack the screen. Okay, so that's probably as good as we're going to get it. It's pretty clean. There's a couple little bits on it, but they're not moving easily, so I'm not going to try and remove them too sort of strenuously, okay? Okay, there we go. That's pretty good. There, we're happy enough for that. Okay, so now we'll reinsert the screws. We'll reinsert these three, tilt the screen up, and then put the fourth one in. Okay. So this is where, if you have a magnetic screwdriver, it comes in very handy. Okay, so that's the three of them in. Just leave this one. So as I said before, we'll sort of tilt this one up and feed some of the excess underneath the screen. Okay, so there we have it. Okay, so we'll just leave that aside. It's just about clearing the frame, and now we'll move on to putting the adhesive around the screen. Okay, so our kit includes the tape. Now you can buy rolls of tape. I usually use sort of a roll just of 2mm tape and build it up because I do find it sticks better, but for the purposes of this here, we'll apply the tape that comes with the screen, just to show you how it goes on and how we can sort of apply it. So it is cut the size, it is cut the shape, so just you can figure out just which strip goes where, and just make sure that you get it all round and it's not interfering with the sort of areas that's going to overlap on the screen, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't, I don't know. Okay, so here goes. Okay, so now we've got that done. Sort of messed up a little bit, but doesn't matter as long as it's all covered. All the edges are down. We'll just press it on. You can use one of these here. So we really want a good bit of adhesion between the glue and the frame, okay? And obviously then we don't want the glue to be overhanging the plastic edging. So we just need a little bit of trim, because here and here it overlaps, which is not good, because then it creates a thicker layer that we then have to trim. So we'll just give this a trim. Peel those bits up. Use our trusty pliers. There we go, there's one. There's two. Okay, so that's that trimmed. We'll just go around it again, just to make sure that it is fixing nice and tight to the frame all the way around. Okay, so we're a little bit short here, so I'll just get the tape and show you what the tape looks like. Okay, so this here is the adhesive tape. It's 3M Scotch tape, and we just peel a bit off and then cut it the length. So it's pretty cheap, this stuff, and it has good adhesion to it, good adhesive properties. Okay, so we'll just cut a couple of strips the length and stick it on. So we'll start here. There's one. There's two, so that should be plenty to hold the screen down. We'll just do the same thing again. Now if you don't have this here, don't worry about it. There is enough to grind. I just made a bit of a mess in the order I was putting them around there, because I don't really use them that often. I usually use this tape. Okay, so there we are. That's it. Now we did get a bit of dirt on our screen, so we'll just get one final little clean before peeling the tape off. Okay, so now that that's done, we're going to peel the adhesive tape off and we're going to seat the screen. Okay, so this is the final chance we have now to get any dirt out from inside the frame. Otherwise it's going to be there sort of forever. Okay. Okay, so that's all that off. We're quite happy with how clean the screen is. It'll always be cleaner, but we have to sort of draw a line somewhere. Okay, So now we just remove the inside layer of this here, and we do not touch the inside layer of the digitizer. And now we're just going to flip it over and stick it down into place, and just make sure our home button is where it should be. And still clicky before we do this. Yep, that's fine. So we'll flick it up, pushing the cable in as we lay this down. So we want the cable to fold underneath. That's it, as we go. Okay, we'll just line it up. It's actually stuck in there a little bit. There we go. Okay. So we can feel the click on the home button before we sort of purchase the screen too much. So that is it. Pretty much that is the screen on. So we'll just turn it on now before we go through too much more hassle and try and sort of heat this to set it, sort of to activate the glue. We'll just check to see if the digitizer is working, okay?